From the New York Times, I'm Mariah Reed, and this is The Daily.
Thank you, Mariah. Mexico has fallen on more than its fair share of hard times in the past century. According to the World Bank, in 2018, 41.9% of Mexico's population fell under the category of multidimensionally poor, which includes poor health, a lack of education, inadequate living standards, disempowerment, and poor working conditions. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it is estimated that Mexico's economy was hit hard in 2020, meaning these numbers are likely higher. However, the 2018 estimate of 41.9% is a decline from 2008 by almost 3%. Income inequality remains high, however, and Mexico falls at a 45.4 on the Gini index. AMLO, would you explain to us what policies you have implemented that led to this 3% decrease in people below the multidimensional poverty line? Have they worked for you as well as you had hoped, or have they fallen short?
First, I want to thank you, Mariah, and the New York Times for having me on today to speak to the people. Since the beginning of my campaign and time in office, I have been an advocate for ending poverty in Mexico and the neoliberal policies that have wrecked Mexico. My first effort to combat poverty and reduce government corruption was when I proposed to cut the salaries of government officials, including my own, to pay for social programs. I have said from the start that I will not fund social programs through tax increases on the wealthy. Instead, I have reduced my own salary and the salaries of other government officials to pay for these programs. The Mexican Constitution mandates that no government official can make more than the president. The days of having a rich government with a poor population are over.
What has this done for anti-poverty measures?
These measures allowed me to increase Social Security spending for the elderly, expand scholarship opportunities for students, and fund job training as well as other programs for unemployed youth. I also announced an increase in the minimum wage by 16% to 140 pesos per workday.
As COVID-19 continues to ripple through the world, poverty in Mexico is reaching record levels, with 45% of the population living in poverty. Even before the coronavirus hit, Mexico was in a recession. But the government agency that measures poverty recently said that between 6.1 million to 10.7 million Mexicans could be cast into poverty by the end of the year. How has COVID-19 affected your plan to fight poverty?
I do not feel as if this pandemic has impacted Mexico and the spirit of its people. I'd continue to encourage the people to go out and hug their loved ones. It is unfortunate that many businesses have had to close, forcing many to lose jobs, but the numbers is actually only around 1 million. But this crisis is temporary. We will defeat coronavirus and reactivate the economy.
I would like to follow up on that number. Economists have stated that this number is much higher and could exceed 10 million by the time the pandemic is resolved. The first positive case of COVID-19 was detected in late February 2020. The unemployment number surpassed 1 million between March and June. Are you prepared for further job loss? Will you offer financial aid, specifically stimulus checks, to help those who have lost or are predicted to lose their job?
We are prepared for additional job loss if it happens, but I do not think its impact will be that detrimental. In order to combat job loss, we are planning to create 2 million new jobs. I believe the country will be able to fight this pandemic and its economic impact without adding to our national debt. Therefore, I'm not planning on providing stimulus checks as other countries have.
Why did you refuse to offer financial aid in the form of stimulus checks throughout the pandemic like other nations have done?
Taking on debt is the easy option, typical of the neoliberal policies of the past that were a failure. Instead, I have made for 3 million loans for small businesses in the formal and informal economy to create 2 million jobs. This will make it possible to protect 70% of Mexican families, equivalent to 25 million homes, especially the poor and the middle class.
More than 70% of people who have died from COVID-19 have had an elementary school level education or less. It's clear that COVID has especially impacted the poor in Mexico. Why have you not done more to combat inequality and poverty?
We have faced the economic crisis caused by the pandemic with a unique and different formula, with all support and credits being delivered directly to reactivate the economy from the bottom up. Priority is not given to companies and banks, but instead people are rescued first.
We will be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever wondered about what AMLO is really doing for Mexico? Have you considered how he made repeated campaign promises to take drastic anti-poverty measures but instead has sat idly by while the poverty rate has continued to rise? Join FRENA, the National Anti-AMLO Front. Member benefits include entrance to group-wide protest marches on the Capitol, luxurious tents to stay in during protests, and scuffles with the federal police. The National Anti-AMLO Front welcomes all new members so long as they are far-right and oppose AMLO and his failing policies. Join our ranks today. Are you a supporter of President AMLO and the Morena Party? Well, it's time to reconsider. AMLO openly defended a candidate from his party running for governor who has been accused multiple times of sexual assault. Additionally, AMLO's policies have failed to address the violence that kills more than 10 women per day in Mexico and the fear that women constantly live in. He even cast doubt on the rising number of domestic violence cases during the pandemic, stating that most emergency calls were fake. AMLO has portrayed the feminist movement as the biggest enemy, but enough is enough. Become an ally to the women's movement and help us fight against AMLO and Morena.
Welcome back to The Daily. I'm Lindsay Edwards, and we are interviewing AMLO today about his policies to fight poverty in Mexico. We have discussed the impact of COVID-19, but moving on from the pandemic, what are some other changes that you have implemented since taking office?
After taking office, I abolished Prospera, which was a conditional cash transfer program for the poor. To replace this, I have set up several new cash transfer programs designed to give stipends to mothers, young people, and the disabled. Giving money directly rather than through providers cuts out corruption. Mexico's high poverty rate is proof that Prospera was a failure.
What has been the most challenging part of implementing new changes in order to help those most in need?
The biggest challenge to implementing some of these changes has been that I am not well liked by some of my fellow government workers. I am working to help the poor and unrepresented people, not the middle and upper classes. I have political enemies who try to ensure that my agenda will not succeed. Many of these individuals are corrupt and highlight the failures of our previous leaders who put greed before the well being of the people.
Looking forward to your legacy, would you say that you have been successful at achieving your goal to help the poor as you promised?
I would say that I have been successful thus far, but there is still much work to be done. I'm honest with people. I hold daily news conferences. I have overhauled the budget, and I'm helping some of the most vulnerable people, including farmers, students, and the elderly. My approval ratings are much higher than previous presidents, and people have renewed faith in the government and its ability to help them.
Thank you for your time, AMLO, and for speaking with us today about your anti-poverty measures.
Thank you for having me on and having this conversation.
I want to thank you one more time, AMLO, for being here today and talking with us about your anti-poverty policies. I'm Mariah Reed, and this has been The Daily.